Is this thing on? I guess we'll find out. Hey, it's time to make a snowflake. Yeah, so we're going to be using a lot of different tools when we're making this. We're going to be using, obviously, the circular pattern tool, rectangular pattern tool, mirror tool, as well as the polygon tool in order to have all this fun. So if you plan to 3D print this, you should probably start this out as a standard metric template using millimeters. If you do not want to 3D print this, then you can just go ahead and use the English and use a standard IPT in inches. I like millimeters, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing, we're going to start in the center, and so that's where I'm going to start my 2D sketch. I want to look at it from a top-down perspective, so I'm going to start my 2D sketch on this XZ plane right there. And right off the bat, I'm going to look up here at my view cube, and I see that my top is sideways, so I need to rotate that around in order to keep my orientation straight for how I want to build this thing. I'm going to grab my polygon tool. This is a tool that will make any size polygon you want, and you can either have the dimensions be inscribed, where the dimension is all the way across the center like it's a circle, or it is circumscribed, where it is the flat that is not quite touching the outside of a circle. Let's go to the flat. And I'm just going to click so that way my center is constrained there. And then I'm going to come up here and I want to lock this thing to my vertical direction. Okay, I'm going to do that because I know that I want this arm to be going straight up. Basically, I'm going to work on building this thing first. Okay, so I've got this all done. I'm going to click done. Now I have no idea how big this thing is yet, so I'm going to grab my dimension tool and I'm going to illuminate that. Wow, 208 millimeters. That's great. I want it to be closer to 15. See, that's why you got to use numbers, not how it looks. So hit escape a couple times to drop that dimension tool, and I'm going to drag this in so that way it's not floating out there in free space. Now, I've got my basic hexagon. I'm going to extrude that. I hit E for my hotkey. You can just go up and hit extrude also. But either way, I want to do a symmetric extrusion, and I want to make this thing, let's go with 12 millimeters thick. Okay? Now, that's pretty boring looking. Let's spice this up a little bit. We know that a water molecule, when it freezes to make a snowflake, it makes all kinds of hexagonal shapes, and that's why I picked a hexagon here. I'm going to go ahead and continue that hexagonal pattern and use a chamfer to round over my edges instead of having those really sharp pointy edges. And I'm going to do both sides of them. Now, just looking at this thing, I made the thing 12. These are 2, so that would be 10, 8. That should be fine. All right, so I'm going to click apply here. If you wanted it to be larger or smaller, you can go ahead and edit that size. But now I've got a chamfer on this thing. Cool, groovy. Now, I want to go ahead and come up here to the top, and I want to have an arm coming out the top. So I'm going to start a 2D sketch right there on my center. And I'm going to grab my polygon tool again. This time, I want the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and start out. If you don't have one of these center points, you need to make a center point. It automatically made one for me here. And I'm just going to bring this thing out until that bottom line lights up green. Okay? So now that I have that done, I'm going to click done on that. And that looks great. But I want to go ahead and now I want to extrude that. Now this is where you need to figure out how big you want your snowflake to be. This is 15 already. I'm going to go ahead and say that I want this to be, let's go with 30. Be a nice large arm. Now, I'm looking at this thing and I need to chamfer these edges again at the top. But only since this is a smaller arm, see how that kind of looks a little goofy? I think that those are too large a chamfers. I'm going to take it down. Yeah, maybe the 2. Do what looks good, okay? Make it larger, make it smaller, experiment with it. I'm going to leave it at the 2. So, there is my main tendril, arm, whatever you want to call it. Now I need to make sure that I have some arms coming out the sides right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to first build up this one, okay? Then I'm going to copy it to here. Then I'm going to copy them and copy them and copy them. So I need to go ahead and I need to start a sketch on this plane. Whoop. Select my tool first. Now I want to make a sketch. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to project some geometry here. I'm going to project the cut edges so that way I can see all of the sides of this thing. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a point on here. Okay? I'm just going to drop the point arbitrarily. I didn't want it to actually lock onto anything. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out how far it is from here to here. So I'm going to grab my inspect tool and I'm going to measure it. Boom, boom. That is 28. Now I want 2 arms, so that means I have 3 sections. So 28 divided by 3 is what? 8, 9? I'm going to go with 9. So that means I want to put 9 millimeters. There we go. Dimension, I want to put 9 millimeters between that point and that point. Ooh, look at how close I was. So, there, I've got this point here. It's in the middle. Now, I'm going to finish that sketch right now. I am also going to go ahead and start a new sketch, okay? So, I want a sketch to show the center of my arm coming out at this crazy angle. So, I'm going to go ahead and find a work plane that already exists. So you remember how it was a symmetric extrusion? That means that that work plane that already exists, our origin plane, is in the center. So I'm going to turn the visibility on that by right-clicking on it, and then I can click on visibility. And now that work plane exists in a space where you can see it. Now, it looks like it is just confined here, but if you need to, you can drag that work plane larger, but just understand the work plane goes out to infinity. Now I'm going to start a 2D sketch on that work plane. I had been clicking on the work plane, so by clicking 2D sketch, it figured out what I wanted to do. Now, I need to project my geometry though. So I'm going to project my geometry of that point and that surface. Now that is included in my sketch here, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my line tool and let it click onto that. And now I'm just going to click and drag it on out, okay? I'm going to not set any geometry and say how long it's going to be. What I want to do is I want to go ahead and take and constrain it back this way as an angle. I know that typically for ice crystals you get 60 and 30 degree angles. So I'm going to play with that and see how I like it. And I said that this was 28. I want this to be shorter than that. So I'm going to grab my dimension tool here, go from there to there. There we go. I clicked on the line and just drug straight down. I'm going to make this be 21. Okay? So, I might change that later. I don't know. Now, I've got this sketch going on here, and very importantly, I need to put a point out here. Okay? Now I'm going to finish that. Now, I need to put a work plane out here in order to put a sketch to extrude this arm. So I'm going to turn this visibility back off so that way it's not in my way. And now I'm going to go ahead and make a work plane. I'm going to do a work plane that is normal to an axis through a point. That's my point. That's my axis. And so now that's my work plane. Isn't that nice? I think it's nice. Okay, so now I got to go ahead and start a sketch on said work plane. And it turned at this crazy funny angle. I'm going to grab my project geometry tool, and I want to project my point. So I just selected the point. Now the point is included in the sketch. But not only that, but I'm making a hexagon, and I want it to look-ish like how this hexagon intersects with that main body. So that means I need to know where that line is and where that line is. So you see how now this edge is projected right here, and this edge is projected right there. So now I have everything I need in order to make another polygon. Yay. So again, I want that top corner to be at the edge, so I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I have a green coincidence constraint for my point, and I'm going to bring it straight on out until I hit that edge. And then I'm going to click it again. And now I'm going to finish it. Seems like a lot of work, but it's okay. Now I'm just going to simply extrude this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say I want that extruded the other way. And I want to say I want to go to that surface. And so now I'm going to click OK. So I went flip the other way. I selected I wanted to go 2 instead of naming a distance, and then I selected the geometry I wanted it to go to. Now I'm going to click OK, and it looks okay. So now I'm going to make my life easier, and I'm going to right click on this work plane and shut its visibility off so it's not in my way. Now we need some chamfers up here, so I'm going to chamfer that right now. Wow, that's looking goofy. Huh. I'm going to decrease my chamfer because it seems to be kicking out errors. Now I can see where they are. All right, cool. Do I have them all? Yes. In order to orbit like this, I'm just simply holding the shift button, and then I click the center mouse wheel. If you haven't picked up on that yet, do it now. Now I'm going to apply that. Click cancel because that looks fairly decent to me. Okay. Now the fun starts. I want to do this again up here, but I don't want to go through all the work. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my rectangular pattern tool. It's what this thing is up here. And I want to select my geometry, but I want to select all the geometry. You see how it lit up over here in the browser? You can also click on the stuff over here in the browser, but I prefer to select the geometry I actually want. Next, you want to select the direction. So you click on the arrow to say what direction. Then you want to go in a line that's parallel to how you want to go. So you see how it went down some? That's not the way I want to go. We should be able to flip that and go upwards. Now you see how it's saying that there's going to be 2 of these things? Ooh, it flipped the other way. That's funny. Let's cancel that since it's not behaving correctly. Sometimes it's easier to just cancel it than it is to try and diagnose what's going on. Alright, so I got my geometry again, my direction. I'm going to select the edge of what I'm trying to do. There we go. It did exactly what I want. Now, you remember how I said 9 millimeters there? I want to go ahead and put this to be 9 millimeters as well. And now I've got it doubled. Okay? If you decide you want to do a different distance, cool, do a different distance. Now, the fun part. All of it's fun. I want to just copy these things over to the other side. Now, before you go crazy, yeah, this looks different. I'm using different numbers. That's okay. So I want to copy these over to the far side. I don't want to make them again, so I'm going to find an axis to reflect those across. There we go. That work plane will work perfectly. So I'm going to turn the visibility back on that. And now I'm going to grab my mirror tool. Okay. It's asking me what features I want to mirror. That's perfect. I'm going to select this thing because you see how it lit up that other one too? Now it's asking me, what do you want to mirror it across? So I'm going to grab that arrow right there for the mirror plane, and I'm going to select the plane I want to mirror them across. And that looks good. I approve. All right, now, the next part, we're going to go ahead and turn that visibility off on that work plane. And now we're going to use the circular pattern tool. Now, the circular pattern tool requires an axis to go around. So what we need to do is we need to make an axis. Fortunately, we started at the origin, so that means that there's one available, conveniently named the y-axis. I'm going to turn the visibility on that, and now I can see the y-axis sticking right on up. That's exactly what I need. So I'm going to click my circular pattern tool, and I'm going to select my features. I want the arms, I want the main body, I want the chamfer. Now I'm going to go ahead and select orientation, and I'm going to select the axis. Okay. Man, that looks weird. Great, we'll play with that in a minute. But you see how it has 6 as your number of counts? That's your number of occurrences. That's how you determine. If I change that, it looks weirder. If I change it that way, it's a different weird. 6 is right. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And it's going to think for a minute. Circular pattern, edit. Oh, it doesn't like how long these pieces are. Cancel. Darn. So you know what that means? We got to edit a sketch. That's okay though. We're going to come down to extrusion 3. Edit sketch. Nope. That's what we want. We want sketch 4. Edit sketch. Remember how this is 20? I'm going to take it down to 15. Finish. See how it just shrunk all those? Now I can go ahead and use my circular pattern again. So select my features, select my direction. There we go. That one might work. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and take a moment and just say, hey, I like to do this every year. I'm going to put a text box here telling me what year this is. So I'm going to grab my text box tool, and I'm going to click it from here. Click OK. All right, so now I'm going to hit escape to drop that text box tool. And now I want the computer to go ahead and center this thing for me. Okay, I don't want to have to do it. So I'm going to click and drag so that way the outside of the text box is lining up-ish with the outside of the hexagon. Okay, now double click your text, highlight your text, tell it to put it in the middle, and tell it to put it in the middle. And also bold it. Bold letters print out better. All right, so that looks good to me. I'm going to hit extrude. So hit E again. Not extrude. What am I thinking? This is text. We need to emboss this. Selecting that profile. Yeah, I should save. And I'm just going to go to a depth of 0.8 millimeters. I don't know why I picked that number today. There you go. All right. Groovy. Oh, wait. If you want this thing to... I'm looking at this and thinking it should be a Christmas ornament. So, I'm going to put a hole for a hook up here. So, I'm going to go ahead and draw my circle. I'm just going to make it 2 millimeters wide. Nah, let's go 4. Ooh, 4 is a little big. Let's go with 3. Perfect. Now I'm going to extrude that. I'm going to make it a cut, but I want it to only go to this surface. If you do a through all, it's going to cut all the way through all this stuff. So you want to do a 2, and you want to go to that surface. And click OK. Now I also want to make it easier for me to get a hook through there, or a string through there. So I'm going to fillet both sides of this thing. A 2 millimeter fillet is kind of goofy large. 0.5 looks all right. So now, look at that. You have just used all kinds of pattern tools, and you should know now how to edit it to make it look better for how you want it to be. Getting better. It doesn't like to make these chamfers when they're cut like that. Either way, hopefully this helped you out. If it didn't, well, ask me a few questions. Take care.